Smartphones. Is smartphone ruining our relationship? What aspect does it have on our lives? What risks do you discover while using your smartphone? Hi, my name is Godwin. On today's episode, investigates the relationship between young people with their phones. Oh, come on, man. The question is, are the young people truly connected or experiencing a decrease in the true physical relationship and bonds? In the UK today, many as 1 in 4 young people have problematic relationship with smartphones. In fact, young people between 16 and 30 years exhibit a high dependency on the use of their devices in a consistent way with a behavioral addiction, scientists find. The study by researchers at King's College London analyzed 41 studies published since 2011 on smartphone usage and mental health, includes that between 10% and 30% of children and young people uses their phone in a dysfunctional way, meaning that an average of 23% we are showing problematic smartphone usage. The problematic smartphone usage (PSU) can be described as the overuse of digital devices or having a behavioral link to smartphone use, resulting to elements of addictions. In most cases, this often happens when the phone is unavailable.
Well, I suppose there's a couple of bits in there. There's a bit of controversy about sort of using addiction. I think it's coming round now that people are starting to use that term more. In the past, addiction did used to have that sense that you'd have a sort of actual physiological dependence on something. So that's why things like alcohol and drugs. When you started, one of the signs of addiction is things like you experience withdrawal symptoms, and that was quite often physiological, so that your sort of body was going, I've got used to managing with it. So there's still some debates as to what's going on around that, but there is a literature now that's using phone addiction. So it's just so that you're aware that there's still some bits of debate around that, but it's certainly that general sense of phone addiction, and I think it's in that sort of smartphone, which I know is the sort of ubiquitous thing, but you're speaking to someone approaching 50 and so that a lot of the phone addiction can be sort of linked in with the social media aspect. It's not just sort of like the old, if you had one of those old little Nokias that was just for sort of texting and phoning, you could change there. So with that sort of framework that there are in the research, there's slight differences around it. It is becoming problematic, and there's sort of the research is linking it in with mood disorders, things like sort of increased anxiety and depression, things like that are sort of linked in, and in things like insomnia, and some of these things all sort of link in with each other. It's hard to sort of pick out, but it's the sort of thing that the people are starting to research and starting to go, yeah, well, this is having an impact on children, young people, and sort of adults as they're developing, and it's something that sort of research is catching up on, because as it's expanding in the different mediums that you can access it.
This problematic use is considered to be 1. Spending a lot of time or hours on social media such as Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn. Second consideration is a danger when texting and driving. Most effects associated here can be considered to be low self-esteem and self-confidence, which often damage our belief that other lives are better off online. Sometimes it can be considered as an effect or as a result of mental health issues such as anxiety, stress, poor sleep, depression, and most times bullying online.
People used to deny depression existed up until last 20 years or so. And I think you've still got people with that attitude anyway. We'll give it another 20 years and we'll have better knowledge about it, really. If the Wi-Fi goes down, you have a power outage or whatever, the anxiety levels, they start bouncing around. My lad he goes nuts. He goes absolutely crazy. Wi-Fi's down, as though it's my fault, you know. And I think that has more of an impact than the actual phone. They're going without the Wi-Fi. They can't cope.
And it causes this kind of way they just feel like everything around them is empty without having the phone.
Yeah.
The effect on young people who overuse their smartphone and social media often find it very hard to build real relationship. This occurs most times on creating true friendship and romantic relationship. In the same vein, young people rather keep eyes on online dating apps and even unrealistic expectations of sex and relationship, where teenagers as well view pornographic video and demeaning women.
For people that have problematic relationships with a phone, some of the research suggests that the vulnerability, and again this is sort of probably for children, young people, young adults, is the people that are vulnerable to getting really problematic relationships with it are people who who suffer a bit from low self-esteem, who struggle a bit with social skills, and then this is sort of tapping more into the social media aspect of it, but then so they have low self-esteem, difficulty with social skills, but really want to be part of a group, want to feel like they're fitting in, and then you get this pattern of sort of searching and getting a sense of belonging from social media, and most of that's done through your phone, but then that becomes a cycle where you end up going, right, I feel safe with my phone, then you avoid actual social situations, you avoid actually doing things, so that becomes a cycle where you kind of go, that becomes scary, but phone, I have a sense of fitting in, I feel comfortable here, and then that sort of sense that your world starts to sort of withdraw a little, sort of get a bit smaller. So that for that sort of thing, you want to actually go, as well as managing your phone, you want to sort of be looking to actively go, well, you want to be out doing stuff, developing those skills, maintaining a good social network. For those people that are socially skilled, then social media becomes like another means of keeping in contact with people. It's not all bad, but for that, certainly that little subgroup, that's when it can become really problematic, is that you just withdraw into that sort of social media world, and a lot of that for people these days is through your phone.
What impact has it really made in the lives of young adults, young children within the age of 16?
Biggest impact I'd say, again going off what my son's doing, is communication in the real world. There doesn't seem to be interaction levels the way it used to be when I was a kid. We used to go out and we'd socialise and stuff, but now socialising is all online, and I'd say that's the biggest change by a long way.
Has it really had an impact anyway?
It's hard to say until years to come, I think. It certainly had an impact on the way that they talk to each other. Like, for example, until he started a job, he never really knew how to interact with other people, apart from his family. And I know it sounds daft, but that's definitely a big thing.
Therefore, it is suggested that it cannot replace human connections and bonds, which are very important to good mental health. Knowing the harmful effect of smartphone to our lives and relationships, it is important to overcome smartphone problems. By overcoming these problems, young people ought to create a behavioral solution which include reducing and controlling smartphone usage. This way will set aside phone-free times and enforce them by pushing smartphones onto silence, thus helping the young people build lesser screen times. Creating a schedule for outing and visiting friends. In this way, young people will reduce anxiety and depression. Then, turning off your push notification as much as possible to avoid distractions from social medias and games. These acts will help control your preference. And lastly, stay accountable and judge your progress. When struggling to keep up with smartphone addictions or usage, it is important to get professional help from cognitive behavioral therapists, counselors, or your local GP for help.